Fair warning, this video is going to be talking about mental health and mental health struggles. So if that topic makes you uncomfortable or can trigger you in any way, shape, or form, feel free to totally click away from this video if you didn't catch what this video was about by the title. But do please come back probably next week to get a more lighthearted, fun video. So hopefully for the people who click off, I'll see you then, and for everyone else, thank you for watching this whole video through. So I'm going to start right off the bat with the why to me making this video. I did ask you guys on social media if you guys wanted to see a video like this, and so many people said yes. But also I think that it is super important to share topics like this because they are often not talked about. And I know from personal experience with a channel called How to ADHD how much that changed my life, just knowing that there were other people out there who had the same learning disability as me, and like someone else was talking about the same struggles and hardships and things that I didn't even know were attributed to ADHD in their own lives, made me feel so much more normal, so much more, or I guess less alone. And I just want to be able to do that for somebody else. And I also think that I also, from the very first video that I made on this channel, said that I wanted to take you guys through my whole musical journey. And, you know, I think that my mental health affects my musical journey. It affects my ability to, write songs. It affects what I write songs about. So I think that it's also important to discuss these things in terms of my journey too. So if anyone has ever heard me talk about my childhood before, pretty much everything comes back to like the age of 7. That year was very pivotal to my life. It basically was the year that all the building blocks of everything up until about last year, I can directly connect to that year. That's the year that I made all of my childhood friends that I had up until last year. That like pretty much everything about my life kind of stems from that age. So when I was 7, I was in grade 3, and I think that if anyone asks me what's like the last memory you have of truly being happy, I would say it was that age. Specifically, this one day in November, I remember being so excited. I was so happy when I went into school, extra excited, even though I was already ADHD, so like I was already a bouncing off the wall type of kid, but I remember being so excited that day, and I remember saying to my teacher, the reason that I was so excited was because my Tia was gonna come home the next day from the hospital, and I was so elated about this. Tia is aunt in Spanish for those who don't know. And the reason why I was so excited by that was because my Tia is like the most important person in my life. Up until that point, like there had only been 3 years of my life that I didn't live with her. It was always me, my mom, my sister, and my Tia. We were all super close. My mom and my Tia were 8 years apart. Me and my sister were 8 years apart. And like the running joke between us all is that they had the wrong kids because I was basically just like my Tia, and my sister was just like my mom. And to make it less confusing for everyone who doesn't know me, my sister biologically is my cousin, so my Tia's daughter. And we were just all super close, and we had just moved that September, basically a block from my Tia, so like I was super excited because then that's the whole reason why we moved there, and I was just excited for the whole experience. I was excited for her to come home. I had seen her the Wednesday in the hospital, and basically just amped to come and for her to come home. And I left school at lunch to go to like my nanny, babysitter, whatever you want to call it, for lunch. And when I walked there and I got there, for some reason, my mom was there. And my mom told me that my tia had died the night before. And to this day, I will never ever understand how my mom was able to get me up that morning and get me ready for school and still act 100% normal, already knowing this. But that's just when my entire world crumbled. Like I said, my tia was the most important person in my life. She was the one person who got me, the one person who understood me. She introduced me to music. I don't know how to explain that bond that we had. And that's when just everything stopped. Over the next year, I spent a ton of time at Sick Kids Hospital, where I was eventually diagnosed with depression, anxiety, ADHD, oppositional defiance disorder, and a bunch of other things that I honestly don't remember right now. Because I grew up Catholic, when I was told that my tia died, to me what that meant, like the line that we're always told is like, oh, they went to go be with God. And I guess in my 7-year-old mind, like, I knew that, but it was more like a vacation and not like a permanent thing. I didn't get that part yet. And I wasn't sad about it at first because I didn't get why other people were sad, because in my mind, like, she'd be back like next week. But obviously that's not the case. At some point I actually thought that she was mad at me because she didn't call me anymore. She didn't like contact me anymore, and that was really hard to go through and to like actually understand what it means for someone to be actually gone. When you're so young and you get diagnosed with all of these things like depression, anxiety, all of that, you learn to survive, but you're not really living. So I'm 22 now, and I've been diagnosed since I was like 7 or 8 years old. So it's been 15 years of feeling like this all the time, and I don't really remember like what it means to be happy, to be truly, truly happy. There are happy moments, but there's always just this feeling of dread and feeling of the world is crumbling on a constant basis. I got to a point where I pretty much lived to make other people happy because I knew what it felt like to have that pain, and I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, so I would try to do everything that I could to make everyone else, like to spare everyone else from that pain and feeling as crappy as I did all of the time. There was even a point in, I think, grade 7 or 8 where I legitimately thought that I was cursed and that everyone that I cared about, bad things would happen to them, and I needed to not be close to anyone because if I got close to anyone, they would die or something bad would happen to them or they'd get hurt, and I really, really isolated myself. It took me a really long time to stop feeling that way. But as soon as I kind of stopped feeling that way, closer to the end of university, it was like the universe was like, no, you're not allowed to be okay. Because now that you're starting to feel okay, we're going to bring the crap storm on you. So it was almost like every time the most amazing thing would happen, almost immediately afterwards, the most terrible thing would happen. So even in the span of a month, like, my niece was born, which was amazing, obviously, and the next day I got injured at work, fired because of my injury, couldn't afford the treatment for said injury, and didn't know how I was going to finish paying for school because I couldn't work because of my injury. And my entire 4 years of my degree basically went down the toilet because if I don't get better from my injury, I can't actually use my degree. And then later that month, I remember having just like almost the best day. And there was even this music person that I had been in contact with and that I really wanted to work with, and I had reached out to them, and they had reached out back to me and was willing to work with me, and I was so excited, and it was just the best day. And I remember going to bed like with this sense of calm, like, okay, this is when everything's gonna get better. This is like you're almost done school. Everything's gonna get better from here on out. This is your light at the end of the tunnel. And then I got woken up at 2:00 in the morning that my friend died. My friend that was days after her 20th birthday was just gone. And my friend dying brought back a lot of those feelings from grade 7 and 8 of like pure hopelessness, of like everyone who is around me or close to me is gonna get hurt or be gone if they're close to me because I'm cursed. And I had to do things that I hadn't done since my tia died. Like, it was the first funeral that I had attended since my tia had died, and that brought up a whole other slew of emotions that I hadn't felt in a very long time, because like I said, I was so young when my tia died that I didn't understand what was going on at the time. So then I felt very guilty for a long time of all the things that I didn't do, or like not singing at her funeral like people asked me to, and all these other things. And so going to this new funeral like brought up a lot of that kind of stuff, and it was honestly the darkest time that I ever remember. And then in the middle of like this darkest time, and I'm starting to like, get a little bit more hopeful. I'm starting to try and come out of it. And then I end up in the hospital. So I ended up in the hospital because apparently I was now somehow allergic to all of the medication that I was on out of the blue. And they discovered I had a heart condition along with that. And this is when I basically found out, like, oh, well, now you're going to need a service dog because you can't really take the medication that you've been taking your whole life to kind of combat the things that you need to combat, like your depression and your anxiety. And because this medication is now going to affect your heart condition, which can make you die, and like you need a service dog, and like my anxiety and panic attacks that I have all the time contribute to this heart condition. It was a mess, and I felt so out of control. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn anymore. I couldn't. And then in the midst of all of that, when I felt so defeated, so alone, so broken, just truly, truly broken, it was like, we're gonna put the cherry and icing on top of this crap cake for you. And I got abandoned by all of my friends. And it wasn't even, it was my entire support system just kind of poof, vanished, gone. To me, it almost felt like, how dare you start contemplating the meaning of life, and how dare you try and figure out what your new normal is, and how dare you go start the process of getting a service dog because your doctors told you that's what you need to do. We're dipping because, how dare you do those things? And it was just kind of like, how dare you find even the smallest amount of joy in, getting a service dog, even though it's a big burden. I wanted to find the little bit of happiness in it, but apparently I wasn't allowed to do that, and I wasn't allowed to, reevaluate what my priorities were and pursuing the things that I was actually passionate about, and not just taking the safe route. Because for me, it was just kind of like, I was making plans with a person, to go see them soon, and they were telling me how stressed out they were about school and stuff, and literally a few days later they're gone. And that's what made me be like, well, if that can happen to them, and I'm just diagnosed with all these things, and my panic attacks can make my heart condition worse, and that can kill me, all this craziness, then why am I taking the safe route? Why am I going back to school when I hate being in school just to make other people happy? But why don't I pursue the things that I want to pursue? But apparently I wasn't allowed to do that, because by deciding to do that, I lost everyone pretty much. And it got to the point where I was literally called a "see you next Tuesday" and told to go die by people who have been my friends for 5 years and more. And that was the darkest place that I've ever been in, because when your whole support system is gone, what do you do with that? Where do you turn? What do you honestly, just what do you do? And I really, really think that if I hadn't just seen all of the pain and the anguish that it caused everyone around my friend who cared about her, I probably would have taken my friend's advice and not been here anymore, because I felt so isolated and so alone. I was going through all of these things and all of these health issues, and all these things that were coming back up from, you know, being 7 or being in grade 7 and 8, and I don't know, it was just hard. But that's kind of just the end of the story, because I don't know what's gonna happen now. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. But I do hope that, like, hearing that, at least for some person out there, hearing that you're not the only person who's going through these feelings and going through feeling so alone and feeling so isolated and feeling like you don't know where to turn, might help you feel like you're not as alone as you might think you are, and that other people are going through the same things that you are. And I hope that one day I'll be able to look back on this video and see how I felt and see how hopeless and sad and almost like I'm drowning like I currently feel, and be like, yeah, I got out of that. Yeah, everything is so much better now, and I hope that I get that one day. So I guess that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.